What can we learn from the modern dating scene, Kanye West, self help books in modern day society, and in general, the entire global conversation? What can we learn about love? Well, we know that love is not a pleasure seeking or emotional thing, but it should be, or it is a dispassionate thing. Again, love is not this emotional. Oh, it turned all red. Love is not this emotional, passionate thing. What can we learn from the modern dating scene, Kanye West, self help books in modern day society, and the global conversation? Love is not emotional, nor is it a pleasure. It is not a physical pleasure, nor is love an emotional thing. We'll talk more about this, after we get back from this short break. Welcome back to this Best Feeling Podcast, the Best Feeling Network, your only no nonsense podcast with your host Herbie on Pagawan. This is True Love Tuesday. We'll be right back after this short break. Good morning, welcome back. I hope you're feeling fantastic. Good morning, welcome back to another episode of Pagawan. Good morning. Good morning, how are you? How are you doing? Today is Tuesday, December 6th, 2022, 9 a.m. Good morning. How are you doing? Please don't mind the awkwardness that is the green screen behind me. It is going on the fritz. Even the colors today are like wild. Look at that. Keep turning red, keep turning blue. Look like I'm Hellboy. Hope you're doing fantastic out there. Are you ready to? And I hope you are ready to stretch your self-awareness like a muscle this morning if you haven't already. Today is a True Love Tuesday. We are messing with all these senses today as I am a ghost on the screen. We hope you enjoy this little glitch that we're having in the screen. Whee! Look at that. Wow. Look at that. Wow. It's always been that way. The software that we have is kind of just like, I don't know. The filter's unreliable, I guess. I don't know. That's all right. That's okay. We're going to keep going on anyway. Hope you're doing well. Today is a True Love Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. Every day on Pagawan, we are discussing the relationship between ourselves and other things. Specifically on True Love Tuesdays, every Tuesday, we are discussing the relationship between the two sexes. Good morning. What can we... Oh, my eyes. I got like some eye boogers. What can we learn from the modern dating scene, Kanye West, the self-help books that we see in modern day society, and even the general conversation that we're having if you're looking on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, the general conversations that keep popping up about how screwed up the world is, how upside down the world is. What can we learn? What can we learn? Well, we can learn that love, here on True Love Tuesday, love is not an emotion. It is not a pleasure. It is not a physical pleasure that we seek. Love is dispassionate. Love is objective. Why? Why is love objective and not this emotional, overly passionate thing? As we look at the world, as we stay so present in that godlike situation you are in, that godlike awareness that you have, creating that experience that you were in, we reflect. Love is not an emotion. Why? Well, as we know, emotions are here and there. We should not look at human emotion as fact as itself, as human emotion is always wavering. It's always this way, that way. Even within yourself, we have such a hard time. You can't even like get your own emotions under control, let alone try to love other people yet. Love is not an emotion, but rather an objective thing, as in wanting the best for the other person from the inside out, from their point of view, which requires understanding their situation before you can understand how to help them best. As your awareness, what's in your awareness is not necessarily in someone else's awareness. So even when you think you are helping someone, you are possibly destroying their focus or messing up their zone, unless you are first listening to their situation, understanding their situation, and seeing how you can help them from the awareness that they have. As we all know, when we're zoned in, when we're locked in on something, somebody trying to help us by maybe adjusting one part of our project might throw our entire focus out of whack, as we were lining up specific things to do in that project in a certain order. And even though someone might have helped with one step of that order, it might have messed up the flow of our entire experience, our entire project building, as we are sometimes lining up things to be done while other things are being done. We have this long plan sometimes that we have a hard time articulating to the outside world. The best way to help someone is from the inside out, as in seeing things from their point of view and trying to help them from whatever it is from their point of view, their awareness. Love is not an emotion. It's so hard to understand the world right now, I think, especially if we're looking at it from a love is an emotion kind of premise. Then you start getting really confused about the world, as you're like, how is anybody claiming to love anyone when it's all emotional? How is anyone claiming to love anyone else if they aren't loving first everybody? But how could you love everybody if love is an emotion thing? Why would you want to love everybody? Well, because if you don't love one person, you love no one. Why did we say, how can you say if you don't love one person, you love no one? How can you say that if you don't love one person, you don't love no one? Well, if there's one person that you don't quote unquote love, then that must mean that your love is defined to yourself as something that only some people deserve and others don't. And you might say, well, that's fine, Herbie. Some people do deserve my love and some people don't. That's fine, Herbie. Some people do deserve my love and some people don't. Well, what this reflects in your understanding of love is that you get to decide who deserves this love thing and who doesn't, which means that unfortunately, inherently, necessarily by that worldview, you in your situation, in your short finite life compared to this entire universe of trillions of years, have defined what love is for yourself. You've defined it yourself, and you've defined that some humans, and you've defined it as such that some humans deserve your love and others don't, which would reflect the idea in your finite wisdom in your lifetime that you've decided that humans are not the same as one another. Because if we were all the same, then if one deserves your love, then they all deserve your love. It's more of a worldview than it is something based off of your emotion, this love thing. As in, again, if you love one person, or if you love one person more than another, or if you define that there are certain people who don't deserve your love, what you have is not love, but a projection of what you and your ego has decided onto the world. And of course, there's no hate. We understand completely. I understand completely everybody's situation, so it's not like I hate you. It's not like anyone should hate you for leading that way, but it's just the nature of it. It's just the truth. If you don't love one person, you love no one. This like green screen is like tripping me out. But again, if you don't love one person, you love no one. And you might be thinking like, well, not all people deserve my love. Well, only if we're talking about love in terms of like an emotional state then. Then of course not all people can have your quote unquote love. If we're thinking about love being this emotional state thing, of course you cannot feel emotionally whatever we define, whatever we associate with love, with this emotional state. Of course you cannot feel that for everyone, and you cannot, even the people that you love, even the people that you define as that love in your close circle, you can't even give your emotional quote unquote love to all these people at once, because your emotions too are ever flowing, ever ebbing, ever flowing this way, that way, always changing. Our emotions, our emotional states naturally change constantly depending on what we're responding to, what stimuli we're responding to. And even from your own experience, you don't even look around and say, oh, just because I'm not emotionally satisfied or emotionally placated by this person in my life, then all of a sudden you don't love them. You know that even from your own experience. Just because you have moods doesn't mean that you suddenly stop loving the people around you. Just because you have moods, just because your mood shifts. You know internally in your inside world, in your own life, in your own experience, that love can't be this emotional thing, because sometimes your emotions shift, sometimes your mood shifts, and yet still in your heart you know that you love the people around you. You know you love the close ones around you especially. So emotions can't be this mood thing. Emotions can't just be this pleasure feeling that you feel in the body, but rather an entire worldview. As in, if we define our worldview that only some people deserve our love and other people don't, you're actually saying that you don't believe that all people are the same. If you believe that all people are the same, then you could love all people. But we're stuck in this mode where we believe that love is this emotional thing, so we cannot even reconcile that worldview with the way that we believe that love is. Love can't be this emotional thing, because that means that the people that you claim to love in your life, you suddenly stop loving them just because your mood shifts. Of course, that's not true. Of course, that's not true. Just because you have a mood doesn't mean that you stop loving the people around you. I know that you love the people around you. I know that you love the close people who are close in your life. But is there some magical thread? Is there some magical cord between you and specific people just because they grew up around you, or just because you're blood related? There may be ties, but there's no magical curtain put around you and people that you define as your family that makes it so that you will emotionally be you'll be emotionally satisfied with them all the time. There's no way. And if there's no emotional curtain there, that means that there's no curtain between you and other people as well. We're all human beings. If we do not love one person, we love no one. If we do not love one person, we love no one. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. How could that be? Well, only if we're looking at love as from a non-passionate point of view. If we look at love as more of an objective thing, as in it's an objective worldview that we are all the same, and so that, and through that logic, you can understand everyone's actions if you are putting yourself in their shoes. And if you can't, naturally, well, how can you love them if you don't understand what they're going through? Doesn't mean that you gotta know like deeply what they're going through, but the willingness and spirit to look at life from their point of view in a way that's non-hateful is love. Or at least closer to this love than this emotional thing, which is wavering back and forth all the time. Does it mean you have to look at their life exactly like you gotta like put your whole spirit into their body and then live their life before you can even begin to love them? Nah. We have this natural inclination towards loving ourselves. And so everything that we do when we're thinking about our own lives, everything that we do, we know that there's a good reason for it. We're looking out for the best interest of ourselves, even if that best interest for ourselves is through some hoops and ladders and through some rules that no one else on the outside can see. Like maybe we're focused on people pleasing our mother or people pleasing our father. So we might do crazy things in our lives that look nonsensical to other people on the outside. But if they look at your value system, you know, from the inside out, that every person is always trying to do the best for themselves somehow. They wouldn't do that thing if they didn't see it to be quote unquote good. Even villains in movies and stuff. One of the reasons why some villains become so likable in some series over other series is because they're human and you can relate to them. Even though they're villains in that situation, you know that they are standing by something that they believe is right, although whatever they believe is right might be clashing with whatever the main protagonist believes is right. But oftentimes villains that we love the most in stories tend to be villains who believe in their idea and they believe that idea is good. Their idea simply clashes with what another person believes is good. But it's easy to love that character because we're relating our own spirit to that character. That character has our spirit. And what we know about our spirit from the inside out when we look in our lives is that we always do things that we believe are good. Otherwise, we wouldn't do that thing. Even someone stealing from a store, the average person might be like, oh, he's a villain. But looking at their lives, using your own spirit as a guide to understand their lives, you throw your spirit into their body and be like, what must have been something that they were looking for that was good in their lives that led to this? Well, maybe they were trying to feed the family they didn't know, and they didn't know how else to feed that family. They're in a situation that they feel like they cannot overcome, and so they must resort to stealing in order to get some food for this family. And so the outside world sees this as stealing, and this person sees they're doing good for their own family, which we can understand. We can begin to love that person by understanding where they come from, though we must keep order in the world, and that does not mean that you're just allowed to steal things all of a sudden just because you feel that the good in your life is somehow more important than someone else's good, when we're all in the same sandbox together, created from the same material. Not just physical materials, but also like spiritual material and emotional and mental material, when we're looking at the same media that's guiding the world right now. So the same kind of food is being fed to our souls. And so if the same kind of food fed to our souls is that saying that just because you have a family that you want to feed, or you have specific things that you want to do in your life, doesn't mean you can go and just break the order of what's going on. Doesn't mean you can just go and steal and whatnot. Again, something else that gets led to when we start thinking that love is this emotional thing. We're like, oh, well, that validates everything that they're doing just because they're emotionally drawn. They're emotionally drawn towards being passionate for their family. But loving this person doesn't involve forgiving their missteps just in order to feed their family or whatever. But loving that person would be informing them of the proper order of the world, bringing justice if they do end up stealing, so that they can stick around, or they can correct their actions so that they can properly feed their family in a way that's not destructive, in a way that this allows that family to live beyond just one meal. Are we dispassionate to be loving? Of course. But that doesn't mean we're not compassionate. We might be dispassionate in the way that we view love. Love might be this dispassionate, unemotional thing, but we can still understand and care for others by recognizing that they are always trying to do something good. And if we can, we try to correct their actions so that they can have better results in the future, in the long run. As in, this dad won't get caught for stealing, or this dad won't create another spirit of stealing in their family by stealing in order to keep this family alive. We correct one another without judgment, without hatred. We correct each other. You correct me, I correct you, without judgment or without hatred, in order to help people actually line themselves up with the world that they live in more correctly, as in we don't steal just because you're in love. We line each other up correctly more in the world. We align each other more correctly towards the world so that people can achieve more good in their lives and not just survive long enough to have their family live one more night, but rather help everybody create a stronger foundation in their lives in which they won't have to do that kind of thing. And part of loving people in order to allow that freedom in their lives to do more good for themselves in their lives, part of loving people is being dispassionate in order to be able to tell them the truth about how, hey, you shouldn't let your emotions run wild to justify your crazy actions in the world just so that you can alleviate this specific pain that you're going through right now. But rather, we want to make sure you set yourself with a foundation of being able to deal with all future pain in the future in a stronger way, in a way that has more longevity before you end up in jail. In order to be able to tell people the truth like that in a way that is not hateful, in a way that is not judgmental, in a way that demonstrates that you are able to put your own spirit into their spirit, the spirit of always wanting good for yourself, right? To understand them, and then so that you can hold back your emotion to be dispassionate enough to tell them hard truths so that they can orient themselves in life. Why do you want to orient each other more in life properly? Well, of course, you want to orient each other more properly in the world, in life, so that people can have more good in their lives and not just be able to deal with that one specific pain that they're going through and then throw everything out, throw the baby out with the bathwater just for this one specific time that they feel is more emotionally important than the rest of the times. Seeing love as a passionate, emotional thing is more about ourselves. It's more about you. It's more about the person who is wanting to feel that pleasure. It's not a love for another thing. It's not a love for another person. If we're following this passionate thing, we're following this emotionalism kind of, if we're putting emotionalism on a pedestal and we're thinking that emotionalism justifies every action in life, that kind of emotion is more about you. It's more about the ego. It's more about satisfying someone specifically and not loving the other person that they claim to love, but satisfying themselves. It's like stroking yourself. This emotional love. This emotional love. Thinking that love is emotion is more about, it's more about numbing the pain of that specific person who claims they're loving other people. It's more about their own specific pain that they're trying to numb and not actually loving others. Putting emotionalism on a pedestal and calling that emotionalism love itself. Putting emotionalism on a pedestal and calling that love itself is more about satisfying. It's more about the ego. We'll be right back after this short break to talk about how emotionalism and putting putting emotionalism on a pedestal as if that is love itself is more about ego. And it's more about that specific person trying to numb their own pain, not about loving the things that they care to love. We'll be right back after this short break here on Palgo One. Tried all the vitamins and gummies that claim they're going to be boosting your mental capabilities, your physical performance, your behaviors in life? Tried them and then felt motivated yet slightly confused and cautious? I mean, are the effects even real or are they a placebo? Are you achieving what you think you are achieving or is it imagination? Do you have all this energy now or is that imagination too? Be done with placebos. Be done with uncertainty. Isn't it so draining to be uncertain? You can't even begin to gain confidence in what you're doing. How about some actionable, specific advice instead? Take this gummy, feel the front of your shins. Bam! That one's free. Take Palgoan with you wherever you go, whenever you go, and feel so good from the inside out. Indulging in emotions feels good, right? When we're angry, we want to exert our wrath onto what we believe deserves our wrath. Even when we're upset or when we're sad, it feels good to indulge in that and feels good to feel like you're right. It feels good in the moment to indulge in emotion. But as we know, as we're finding out, as we're discovering together, as we are fellowshipping together, we are realizing that seeing love as this emotional thing turns out to be more about reducing the suffering or temporarily reducing the suffering of that specific person who claims they're loving other people. The person who claims they are loving other people, if they view love as this emotional thing, they view themselves as God, like they get to decide who deserves their love and who does not. If we see emotion, if we see love as this emotional thing, we are realizing together that that is more for that specific person who claims they're loving other people. They want to indulge in this emotionalism. Why does that mean that they're, why does that, how do we know that that's not love? How do we know that that's not love? Well, love can't be this emotional thing, as emotions are this very surface level part of our level of consciousness, as we know. And we're more trying to escape this pain selfishly from the place that we're at if we're seeing love as this emotional thing. Why? 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 Well, there's this pain that we're feeling daily of just trying to feel emotionally happy all the time. Trying to feel emotionally happy all the time. And that's something that we're dealing with personally. Every single person is dealing with that on the inside personally. The same thing that's happening within you is happening outside of you, inside of others, as JLP would say. The same thing that's happening inside of you is happening outside of you, inside of others. And so when we look at our own lives, we can even see that how much our emotions are constantly being affected by the stimuli that we have around us, whether that be physical or whether that be the stimuli from the thoughts that we're having that are invading our body, or whether that be from the person that we're talking to, or possibly the ideas that we have in our head of what we want to do. Our emotional state is constantly being bent this way, that way, based on the stimuli that we are receiving at that time. So how can love be this non-ending thing that we all know it to be in our hearts if it's something that is constant? If we assign the title quote unquote love to emotions which are being constantly affected this way, that way, your mood's constantly shifting based on the stimuli that you're receiving around you. And yet we know this love thing to be this eternal thing that can be present at all times. Well, how can it be present at all times if we are viewing love as this emotion thing when we know emotions are this way, that way, and we know this from our own experience of our own lives and our own bodies? And so if the same thing is happening inside of ourselves, outside of ourselves, but inside of other people, then we know that love as this eternal thing that we know deep down to be in the human spirit, somewhere deep in our design, we just know unconsciously that love is this eternal thing, this everlasting thing, right? Well, it can't be this emotional thing, as we know that emotions are just whoosh, whoosh, this way, that way, based on what's going on around you. So how could love be that way? We all have a need We all have a need to feel important. We all have a need to feel balanced. We all have a need to feel peace. Hello? Oh, there you go. Not the mic turned off. I mean, I had a long struggle with this in my life, specifically even getting to this point of just trying to discern what this love thing is. But we know from the inside out, we know from our own experience, you know from your own experience from the inside out, that emotions are this constantly wavering thing. Your mood is constantly shifting. Sometimes you'll be in a good mood and then right in a few minutes you just switch on over, or you can feel your mood slipping this way, that way. We like to put titles on it these days so that people feel like they don't need to deal with it anymore. It's just an affliction. Oh, I'm bipolar. Oh, I'm this, I'm that. So that we put these titles on them to medicalize them, to make it seem like there's nothing you can do about it. Make us feel even more helpless so that they can sell you pills. Make your moods, turn your moods into this thing that is like medical. It's just like, oh, you're just afflicted with this, like, this bipolarism. Instead of recognizing that moods are not you. The mood that you were in is not you. The emotions that you were having is not you, but rather this thing that happens to you. Emotions and these moods are not you, but rather this thing that happens to you. This thing that happens to you that we learn to deal with. One of the things that causes us to be all moody all the time is that we even believe that this love thing is this emotion thing, so that the second somebody stops feeling emotionally satisfied with us, which happens all the time, we find ourselves emotionally satisfied with what we ate for breakfast this morning. So when we define love for ourselves as this emotional satisfaction, this emotional pleasure, this high feeling, well, we start to already feel like the world doesn't love us anymore. The people that we care about don't love us anymore when their mood shifts, even though their mood is completely independent from you. They're going through their own thing in their own lives. And so all the stimuli that's happening in their brain, all the things that is in their awareness might cause these mood shifts. And then suddenly they don't love you no more. Of course you're going to feel like crap. Of course you're going to feel like your mood is this way, that way, when you've already assigned the position of love to be this emotional thing, because then the world really doesn't love you, because nothing in the world is going to give you that emotional satisfaction all the time. No, instead, what we ended up doing was seeing love as this emotional thing, unfortunately. And so, of course, our mood's going to shift this way, that way, as we start to think, oh, well, if I'm not emotionally satisfying them, or if they're not emotionally happy around me, then that means they don't love me. Well, of course, your mood's going to go everywhere, because then that means that no one loves you. It's going to feel like no one loves you in the world, because everybody's mood is constantly shifting. Yes, of course, we can see that if you are seeing love as this emotional thing, this emotional satisfaction, well, that's more for you in that situation. Not about the love of the person that you claim that you're loving, but rather the selfish act of feeling like you need to escape this feeling that you're going through. And that feeling might be, the feeling of being unable to feel appreciated, or that need to feel important. We have these needs to feel important, these needs to feel remembered, these needs to feel just larger than life. And that high feeling that we associate with this emotionalism of love often gives us that feeling in short term. We're being all this emotional, we start to feel like, okay, well, at least I'm getting some of the love. But if we are viewing this emotional thing that people are going through, like, oh, that high feeling that we associate with love, if we see that as love itself, well, of course our moods are going to go every way, this way, that way, because no one is going to feel that satisfied high feeling that we associate with love. No one's going to feel that all the time. You can't feel that all the time. So what, if you think that emotion is love itself, then what? Anytime someone stops feeling that way about you, suddenly you're not loved. No wonder this world is going upside down. No wonder there's an epidemic of depression in the world right now. Because the whole entire world is so convinced on convincing you that this emotional this emotional high that you get, this honeymoon phase that you get with people, is love itself. We might all want that because we might all from the inside desire this feeling to be at peace, desire this feeling to let go, desire this feeling that no matter what we do, we'll still be able to get that emotional feeling back. We desire that, of course. Of course we do. Of course we do. Humans are so smart. You're so freaking smart. You have this idea inside of you that's like, you have this idea of like this love inside of you, and you're constantly finding ways to recreate it in your life. Humans are so smart. You know all of the implications that it means to be loved, and that you could be cared for, and that in your lowest of lows you'll be cared for. In your lowest of lows you will still be accepted into society so that people can help you. In your lowest of lows, we are very social creatures. We just know. Humans know on like a natural instinctive way that it is important to be accepted by other human beings. And so we think that this emotional love is the thing that's going to have you accepted by human beings. But what it actually ends up revealing is that you don't believe that everybody's the same. And so you might be chasing this emotional high and yet still not have all of the good benefits that come from being loved or giving love, which we know is this like endless support, this endless understanding, this doorway in which the universe and people themselves continuously funnel into your life in a positive way. We know that is the reward for love, for receiving love and giving love, is this unending open door in which life keeps giving you good things, good people in your life. We know that love brings that. But our definition of love is all screwed up, because if you want all of that, then seeing emotionalism as love is the fastest way to not get you that open door that the universe will continuously provide you with good things with. So we know that love opens the door for the universe to bring all these great things into your life, all these great people into your life. But if we have the wrong definition of love, we're not going to get all the good things that love claims to bring, or that we know deep down love brings in life. We know that love opens this door for all these great things and great people to enter your life, to support you when you don't even know, to surprise you. But you would be surprised when you do not get all the great benefits of love, because what you are giving and receiving is not love. What you are giving and receiving is not love. In this modern day conversation that we're having, in this modern day conversation that the world is having right now, this emotionalism thing is not love, but rather that is that person's selfish desire to feel appreciated. And one of the quickest ways towards feeling that is by giving this other people this immediate sense of high, this immediate sense of physical pleasure. But guess what? No, not only can that pleasure stay, not only is that pleasure fleeting and temporary, and you cannot provide that feeling for everybody at all times, and other people cannot provide you with that feeling reliably at all times. Even worse, you're not there for everybody at all the time. So even if you could create that feeling in other people with high frequency, you cannot be with those people at all times. So the second that you leave, no longer are they feeling this love thing, quote unquote, if love is this emotional thing. No, love is not this emotional thing, but love is this objective idea of a worldview that we are all the same. How are we all the same? Well, of course, the same thing that's happening inside of you is happening outside of you, but inside of others. A worldview that we are all the same, that the spirit that you are going through, the spirit that is always trying to do good for your life, exists in other people. And that's how we are all the same, of course, is by seeing that what's happening within you is happening outside of you within others. The same thing that's happening inside of you is happening outside of you inside of others. And as we shift that focus to recognize the same thing that's happening inside of you is happening outside of you, but inside of others, we start to see that there is a worldview in which we are all the same. And this worldview itself grants us closer to this love thing, which, as we know, opens the door for all these great things and great people to enter your life, as we are now recognizing to love other people is to understand other people, but first by understanding yourself so that you can see and recognize that spirit in others. In the same way that you are always gunning for the good things in your life, every other person is going through that same human condition in which they're always gunning for for good things in their lives. And emotionalism is happening to everyone, but is not everyone. Emotionalism is happening to everyone, but as it is not you, as your moods constantly shift, we recognize that these moods and these emotionalism that is happening to everyone, those emotions and those moods are not them the same way that they are not you when those emotions and those moods happen to you. You know, you are still loving yourself when you're changing moods. When those moods affect you and that emotionalism is affecting you, you know that you are still loving yourself because you are still looking out for the good for yourself. We'll be right back after this short break here on True Love Tuesday. Thank you for being here. We do appreciate you. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Give us some feedback. Let us know how all this is feeling for you. Do you agree? Not so agree? Is it intuitive or is it confusing to you? We'll be right back after this short break. Talk more about this True Love Tuesday here on Pagawan. We have a recommended book reading list. If you feel like you have a hard time understanding yourself at this stage in your life, check out No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert A. Glover. It's an aggressive title, but a very meaningful book when it comes to understanding the self, both men and women, masculinity and femininity. So you'll see it first in yourself, then throughout the world, so it brings peace through understanding. Do you suffer from a mental illness that you want to actually do something about? Or do you just want to be able to change your patterns and behaviors in life? Check out that book with the girl with holding her hand up. It's an amazing book. The Body's Map of Consciousness, Volume 1, Movement, by Lansing, Barrett, Gresham, and Julie J. Nichols. Do you have body or neck aches throughout the day or throughout the night? And gone to chiropractors and just been frustrated with not being able to get a permanent fix? Check out the purple book, The Structures of Movement and Breathing, by Barbara Conable, and Anatomy of the Voice by Theodore Dimon for a more detailed look there, that book on the left, and take charge in getting your relief back. All these books are highly recommended and pretty short and just freaking phenomenal books. Beyond impressive, incredible, ridiculous, awesome, stupendous, prodigious. We can have love for all. Welcome back to another True Love Tuesday here on Pagawan. We're going to wrap up here, but we can have love for all. We're seeing everyone with these picket signs and all these rallies these days of like, God is love, love is love, love is for everyone. Love all. How can we love all if love is this emotional thing? Of course, that's impossible. You can't feel that emotional high for all people at all times, especially when they're doing things that disagree with you or or give you that negative stimuli, give you that negative stimuli from the inside out. We hear a lot about these in like these rallies. Love conquers all. Well, love can't be this emotional thing. Then you can't love everyone, and then in that case, you are deciding who gets your love, and you are placing yourself in this position where you just know everything, and you are the arbiter of all things. But as we know as human beings, we don't know very much as human beings. We can't see very much from your individual vantage point. You are seeing what you see, but you are also affected on all these layers of consciousness. So it's hard for you to even decide what's going on in your own body, let alone what's going on inside of others. And so if you're deciding who deserves your love and who isn't, first of all, it's a lot of pressure, makes it so that you don't have peace in your life. But second of all, what vantage point do you really have to be able to see clearly who deserves love and who does not? Right? From your individual vantage point. Love is love. Love conquers all. Yes, but love is got to be closer to this forgiveness thing, this understanding thing. Love has got to be closer to this idea of forgiveness and understanding, which comes from a stronger understanding that we are all the same. How can you forgive and understand everyone so that you can have peace in your life, so that you can get good in your life? How do we do that? Well, we have to see ourselves as the same as everyone else, in the sense that we are all suffering this human condition in which we are trying to get the best for ourselves in our lives, although it might look shady or it might look strange to other people. We're all living the same experience of the same human condition in which we're all just trying to find the best in our lives. And so this love is love thing can't be like this emotional thing. Rather than when we are seeing love as like this emotional thing, well, isn't that just for you? Isn't that more just for you so that you can feel this emotional high? And you can't give that to everyone at all times. Of course you can't. Human emotions and human moods are this thing that happens to us. So we can't keep it regulated at all times, but love is closer to this understanding thing. I believe that in my soul, in my heart. I believe that in my soul and in my heart, love is not this emotional thing. If anything, love is closer to this idea of restraining your own emotions in order so that you can actually get more truths out there into the world. If anything, love is closer to the idea of restraining your own emotions in order to do what's proper in the world. Holding back your emotions, dealing with your emotions so that they do not have to disrupt other people when they're focusing on their lives, trying to get the best what they can in their lives. As you know, when you're doing the best you can in your own life, it's so annoying to be micromanaged. It's so annoying to be told from the outside in what to do, as you are already on this path, this journey towards making your life better. And what's scary is trying to do the best in your life for others and for yourself, and then not receiving forgiveness or understanding in any moment that you have a misstep or do anything on the way, as we are all making mistakes so that we can correct them, become better in our lives, and deal with the next mistake even faster. How can we do that freely if we are afraid that we will not be forgiven or we will not be understood? Should we try to be creative, or should we try to do what we feel is best for ourselves in our lives? Sometimes we'll make mistakes. Of course you will. And don't we need the freedom to be able to make those mistakes in order to get on the correct path again, to orient ourselves closer to balance? Don't we need the freedom to be able to make those mistakes? How can we do that if we feel like we're going to lose the love that we want? Because we see love as like this emotional mood thing. Oh, the second that we make a mistake, which you inevitably will, the second that, oh my gosh, the second that I make a mistake, I'm going to lose all the love because I'm not going to have the emotionalism. And that, to me, that's love. Well, of course, you're not going to have the love if you view love as this emotionalism thing, because emotions are fleeting, but rather love itself on this True Love Tuesday is closer to understanding, is closer to forgiveness, is closer to restraining our own judgment, is closer to restraining our own emotionalism so that we are not disrupting other people on their path towards the greatness in their lives by having our emotionalism now give them something new to worry about. Indeed, the love that we seek The love that we know is the one that conquers all. It is this love that conquers all, but it is not this emotionalism thing, but rather this love thing is more about handling yourself and your emotions in order so that you can be free to forgive and understand others by recognizing that the same thing that's happening inside of you, being afflicted by these emotions and moods, is happening outside of you, but inside of others. In order to restrain our emotionalism from stopping, in order to restrain our own emotionalism, understand ourselves better so that we can love others by understanding others. Understand what we are going through, and so that we can understand what other people are going through to allow them the most freedom to go after what's good in their life and not be bogged down by the wretched emotions of other people who are not able to hold or understand their emotions or get their emotions under control. As we know that that's best for us as well. We give the same thing that we would want for us to other people. The same kind of peace that we want in our lives, free of emotional blackmail or free from having to feel like our actions are going to affect other people in like this irreversible emotional state. The same way that we want to have the freedom to get the best in our lives by not feeling emotionally blackmailed or feeling like we're emotionally beholden to other people in order for their happiness to be a good thing. We want that freedom in our lives to not be affected by other people's emotionalisms or not feeling indebted to other people's emotional states. We want to feel that freedom in our lives, and then we want to give that freedom to other people. And the only way we can do that is by handling ourselves and our emotions first, being able to withhold our emotions and our selfish needs to feel this emotional high, prioritizing that over other people and disrupting their own flow in their own lives. The same way that we don't want that disruption in our flow in our lives, we want to give that freedom to other people. We want to understand and forgive all people and recognize that love is not this emotionalism thing, because if it is that case, then you cannot love all. Not only can you not have that emotion for all people at all the same time, you cannot even be around them at all the same times, even if you were the one providing that feeling for them. Well, guess what? When you're not around it, they don't have that anymore. They don't have love, of course not. But love is this understanding. And of course, this is what I believe. And of course, it will not reach some people. And of course, some people may not agree. You may do whatever you would like to do. You do you. At the end of the day, you're always going to do what you want to do anyway. You cannot convince nobody of nothing, but rather people will see the truth when they're ready to see the truth. Emotionalism is not this love thing. Love is not this emotionalism thing, that this high that you're trying to chase, but rather the security from the inside out that people can recreate that more and more and more and more and more often in their lives. It is not, love is not this emotionalism, passionate thing, but rather the recognition that that emotionalism and passion and moods things often get in the way of your experience, get in the way of you performing the best that you can in your life. And recognizing this truth about emotion, about what's happening within you, gives you the ability to love all, as then you are now understanding everyone else by recognizing that what's happening within you is happening without you inside of other people. Thank you for being here as we are unwrapping the mysteries of the world these days on True Love Tuesday. Confused as why this love quote unquote thing is not, this love quote unquote thing is not conquering all. Well, we have our sights on a different target, calling another thing love when it was not love. This emotionalism thing, which often gets in the way of love, as it gets in the way of seeing other people as yourself, or it gets in the way of being able to see that the same thing happening within you is happening within other people too. The same thing that's happening within you is happening outside of you, inside of others. And this emotionalism thing tends to get in the way of that, so it gets in the way of being able to forgive and understand people in their own position, in their own dignity of trying to get the good in their life. Again, this emotionalism thing actually prevents you from being able to see that the same thing happening inside of you is happening outside of you, but inside of others. What is that same thing? Well, the desire to get the most good in their life. And when we begin to see that and we recognize that truth, we begin to be able to understand and forgive all. Of course, that doesn't mean we're going to take people out of jail for breaking the law necessarily, but recognizing from a spiritual standpoint, or in terms of what their motivations are, every person is motivated by this same human condition, just trying to get the best good in their life based on the worldview that they've established for themselves. We can learn to understand others and get rid of this idea that this love, this emotionalism thing is so inconsistent. Thank you for being here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Hope you go out and love yourself and love others by not judging yourself, by not judging others, by recognizing the same condition that we are all afflicted by, this emotionalism thing that is so tempting. It's so tempting to indulge ourselves in, but often gets in the way of true love, forgiveness, and understanding. Thank you for being here. I hope you have gotten something out of this. I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation. Please feel free to give me some feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this idea that love is not this emotionalism thing. Love is not this emotionalism thing. If anything, it's about handling your own emotions so that you can be ready to help other people for what's good for them from their points of view, as no one likes to have their own points of view suddenly micromanaged from the outside when they're like, you don't know what I'm thinking about right now. How could you improve my plan if you don't understand my plan? Thank you for being here. I hope you have been remembering to pretend that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Thank you for joining us here on this very awesome episode of True Love Tuesday. Love is not emotionalism. Thank you for being here. We'll see you tomorrow on a Warfare Wednesday. Woo woo! Have a fantastic day, everyone. I hope you're feeling so great from the inside out. Thank you for joining us here on the Best Feeling Podcast in the Best Feeling Network, your only no-nonsense podcast where we are using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. Feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without. Thank you for joining us here with your host, Herbie. This has been Palgawan.